Mm.
Mm, mm, mm,
Mm.
mm. What's going on here?
Mm. Mm.
Hmm.
See what's happening over
Hmm.
here, here,
I
here.
don't know.
Huh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh wait, put our
We
mirrors
live?
down. What's going on? We're
Are
live.
we
What's
live?
happening?
Oh
We are
man, we are
live.
live.
We're live.
Whoa. That
Live and
must mean
direct.
that I
Hmm.
am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity, baby.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you. And tonight, I mean, not like any other time. We're going deep. We're going deep in this bad boy.
Yeah, man. We're gonna get
Hmm.
real a little bit,
We're going to get
man.
real deep.
Right after I hit share on my thing. But by the way, if
Gotta
you're
share it. Gotta share it.
I gotta share it, man. If I don't share it, sharing is caring. So if I don't
Well,
share, what am I
well,
doing?
he's sharing. Just remember, if you go to the Mad Men of Masculinity page on Facebook, you can say hello, just like Janine did, and we can share it on the screen and make you famous. I'll make you famous.
Did Janine say there she is?
She said
Our
hello.
number one fan.
Number one,
Our
gotta
number
have
one
fans.
fan. Let's see. I'm just hitting
Fans
share
make it fun.
on my junk, man. Our number one fan. The reason why we're doing 5:30 and not 5,
5:30.
because we're lovers of our fans like that,
That's
man.
right.
We
Try to help
listen.
out. Try to we listen to the comments. We listen to the feedback. We try to help out.
They speak, we listen. We appreciate you, Nee. You're awesome. You're a phenomenal human being, and thank you for being who you are.
Yes.
Thank you for so, man.
So,
We got these up here. We
got my little
sometimes,
mirror.
man. So I got
Hmm.
this one, and this
Hmm.
particular mirror has like it has one that's like
Yeah, I got
closer,
that.
one that's
Yeah.
farther away,
Do I
kind
need
of
to get
thing.
closer? Oh, I don't know if I want to get that close.
Well, and that's the thing, man. When we sometimes, man, looking in the mirror can be hard, man.
Mm.
And I think the other day, man, when you kicked it out there, I thought, man, this would be a great topic. The whole idea of why is it so hard for us to look in the mirror, man?
Right.
I mean, that I don't know. It seems like it's kind of ironic because so many of us are on screens,
Yes.
but we don't necessarily like to look in the mirrors.
Mm-mm.
And I think it's kind of an interesting phenomenon to
Yes.
explore.
Definitely. I mean, when you first brought this up, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a good topic," because what it just stirred in me. It was like, well, it's so hard to look in the mirror because the mirror just reflects back you. It just reflects
Mhm.
back your truth,
Yeah.
and depending on where you're at with loving yourself or your own inner stories and dialogue or your own mental health, things like that, it can be very hard to look in the mirror. I mean, you can look in the mirror just to do your hair and stuff, but
Yeah.
that's action oriented. But just to look at yourself, I know
Yeah.
there's lots of those self love practices where you look in the mirror and say,
Yeah.
"I love you, I love myself, I love it." That can be hard, and I think it's
Yeah.
because of it's unfiltered reflection of truth. It's just reflecting back who you are and what you see.
Yeah. And that's I mean it's a very tough practice, I think, to look in the mirror and kind of right out of the gate. I mean, I kind of have a thing where I think us as people, men and women,
Mm-hmm.
but I think us, we need to get to the point where we can look in the mirror and we can love who we see and still at the same time recognize that what we see is a work in progress.
Yes.
And I think the challenge is, to your point, when we look in the mirror, a lot of times we just tend to focus on the flaws. I mean, I got a scar right here on my forehead that I got when I ran into a trash dumpster
Going.
when I was, whatever, 8, 9 years old. I got, and then it seems like every time I kind of grow out a little bit of facial hair, I look down and more of it is gray. And, I got more and
Get
more
the
gray in
gray hair.
here and, all those kinds of things. And I can just see the flaws and, that's just a guy,
Yeah.
and women, it could be even worse, I think, because I think women might look in the mirror and they might see the lines in their forehead and think, man, I got to go get some stuff injected in there or else I'm not going to be good on the singles market, which is nothing further from the truth. I mean, all those kinds of things. But it's hard not to see the flaws. It's hard to see beauty when you look in the mirror, man.
Mm.
But you gotta, I think that's something that we all got to grapple with, man.
Yeah, I mean, we are trained, especially in the Western culture, to be very negative focused. We're always when we walk up to friends or we walk up to coworkers, we usually aren't talking about our wins and our positive things. Where oh, this weather sucks, or oh, this bad thing happened. We all and the news is all negative,
Yeah.
and so we're just trained to be negative. So when we look in the mirror, it's really hard not to go straight negative. And then of course, our own internal stories, our own past will be showing in that mirror, and then we have all of those internal comparisons with
Mhm.
social media, the news, the celebrities out there, and we compare ourselves to them, which we're not supposed to be comparing ourselves. You're a unique person. You are who you are, but we are trained to compare ourselves. And so, I mean, especially like social media, somebody you don't even know can make you feel small and little because of what they're curating on social media.
Yeah.
And so we look in the mirror and go, oh, I'm actually aging. Oh, I'm getting gray over here and over here. Oh, I'm not as thin as I used to be. I'm not as athletic as I used to be. And
Yeah.
we're just focused on that negative.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it gets hard to look in the mirror for each person. I think mainly comes down to have you accepted your own stories yet? Have you accepted your past? Have you accepted all those things that make you who you are so that you can love yourself? So I think most of us are living in our own curated fantasy world of who we want to be or who we think we are or who we are projecting to be without
Mhm.
actually looking internally to accept who we really are and all those things that make us who we are.
Yeah. I wonder if we can, I mean, suggestion. I wonder if we can look at the two sides of the coin, one from what we think, what you and I happen to think. Which way are you? You're that way. Um, which one, I mean, what we think in terms of perspective from a man's, men's side and then the women's side as well. And I mean, that being said, I think I think men have a tendency to just choose not to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
I think men have a tendency to just say, "Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna, keep doing what I'm doing. I'm just gonna roll out, however, and not." Which is, I mean, in a way, if that's in a healthy way, it can be cool. But I think a lot of times as men, we don't take the opportunity to do like a self evaluation or a self check. Where am I in my heart? Where am I in my soul, my spirit? Where am I in my body, in my mind? Probably some of the rarest places you'll find men is in doctors' offices, on therapist couches, and I'm just going to say like in churches in terms of my spiritual being. And so I think that's indicative of the fact that we as men we're not too good at actually examining ourselves or looking in the mirror and taking some kind of personal inventory of who we are and more importantly where we are in life. We can focus on what we're doing, but that doesn't have anything to do with the actual reflection that we see when we take the time to look in the mirror.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. I was just watching some TikTok or something, and they were like, "Well, what's it like to be a man?" Oh, what's it like to be a man? Well, nothing you do is good enough,
Mm.
and no matter what you say or do, it's not it. There, you can always do more. You can always be more. So there's always that judgment and that hill to climb. Plus, in our society, especially, nobody wants to hear our stuff. They're like, "Suck it up." Nobody wants to hear what we're going through. So I think it can be very hard when you're struggling and you've got the mindset that well nobody cares, suck it up. So why should I look in the mirror and look at what I'm struggling with? Why should I go ask for help and get the help?
Yeah.
Because we've been taught that nobody cares, and no matter what we do, it's not good enough. Always, you got to get the next rung, you got to get the next trophy, you got to get the next thing.
Yeah.
So it can be very difficult to look in the mirror and go, oh well, maybe I'm not achieving what I think I should, or maybe what my wife, family, kids think I should, or society thinks I should.
Yeah.
And so to have that honest look and go, maybe I'm not where I want to be as a man.
Yeah.
But what really struck me out, we were talking about that book, Own Your Past, Change Your Future, which really is about your stories.
Hmm.
It's a great book to look at, especially for men, because one of the things that struck me is that change and healing does not happen in an echo chamber. You cannot do it by yourself. You have
Hmm.
to get out and do that. And I think, especially coming from an isolationist and an avoidant personality type like myself, it can be very difficult when you know you need to connect. You know you need to get out there with people. You know this is how you can get out in the world and get out of your lonely mindset.
Hmm.
But when getting out with people triggers your fight and flight and your PTSD and these different things, it can be this double edged sword of, well, I know I need to get out with people,
Yeah.
but how do I get out with people and not be triggered or not be in fight or flight or in stress the whole time? I think for a lot of men, it's this balancing act of, well, I've got to maintain, I've got to provide, I got to be in the world, but I'm also not allowed to, or I don't think I'm allowed to be weak or be emotional or
Yeah.
be these things. And so to look in the mirror, you're like, I don't know if I can look at all that stuff about me right
Yeah.
now.
But it's even taboo for men to actually even talk about the fact that we have struggles. It's even taboo for a man to actually say, like, guess what? I'm really having a hard time with this. And that's,
Yes.
so hence you got, higher rates of this and that for men, over women. And I mean, it's really taboo for us to even say, you know what, I feel this way, or or anything having to do with some difficulties or challenges that we have. Um, and quite often, when we get in settings with mixed genders in terms of men and women, for a man to say, "I struggle with this," or "this happens," or whatever, quite often, what we get back from women is, yeah, but,
Oh,
or either us too, or like, quite often, women, the women in our lives have a hard time just sitting in that space and just holding space without trying to pivot it or reflect it back, or turn it a different way or anything like that. I mean, and so, it's hard for men to accept the fact or not to accept the fact, but it's hard for men to kind of come out with the fact that, I'm struggling with something, and a lot of that has to do with not being enough. If you look in our culture, we commonly give our moms way more grace than we gave our fathers.
oh yeah.
We forgive our moms way more easily than we forgive our fathers. And if you are a father, it can be, kind of a thankless feeling. We're about to go into a season where we celebrate Mother's Day, and then a month later we celebrate Father's Day. And it is apples and oranges in terms of how much we celebrate Mother's Day and how much we celebrate Father's Day. Now, obviously, I'm not against celebrating Mother's Day. I ordered my mom a gift today, a customized gift to be mailed to her. So I'm not talking about that. But what I am talking about is, where's the celebration for the man and the men that should be, that we commonly expect in our culture to just fall on the sword, and take the sacrifice, take the burn. And so, for a man's perspective, it's like, I don't need to look in the mirror because I get the negative kind of reflection back to me without even looking in the mirror. The world tells me my scars. I don't need to look in the mirror to see my scars. And so this can be kind of a common experience, I think, for men.
Yeah. And I think it's just one of those things that's, we talk about the big thing now is equality, equality of opportunity, equality of pay, and all these different things. But the equality, and this may just be my own opinion, my own perspective, but it seems like that equality is still very much focused on the feminine side.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at battered women's shelters, there's what, 1,500, 2,000 in the U.S. I did the research. You know how many battered men's shelters there are? And men get battered in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
There's one.
Mm-hmm.
There's one in Oklahoma. And so this kind of discrepancy at looking at, well, okay, we want to focus on the feminine, we want to focus on our ladies and make sure that they're safe and they're protected. Well, what about the men? Why are
Yeah.
we not educating them on being emotionally open and being able to talk about these things? Because I can guarantee you, most of the violent men are in pain and
Mm-hmm.
don't have a healthy outlet,
Yeah.
and so they whether it's in their relationships or at their job or just most of the time, and this is for probably 75 to 90% of men, it's not even directed outwards, it's directed internally,
Yeah.
because we feel not good enough, we feel not seen enough, we don't feel respected. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that really has become a prevalent nowadays, is that we are told to provide, we're told to protect, we're told to do all these things,
Mm-hmm.
but nowadays we're not even respected for it.
Yeah.
There's not anybody saying, "Oh, good job, thank you so much." It's like, well, what else? What's next? Why don't you get
Yeah.
this job? Why don't you work harder, make some more money?
Mm-hmm. And again, commonly when we show up to space, when we show up, one of the first things that happens is, here's how you need to change.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's what you need to fix, and all these other kind of things. And so that's the common experience. And like I said, it's actually, it's kind of cringeworthy to hear, because it's taboo for a man to say, hey, you know what, there is an experience. Now, you and me are not in that toxic space, right? There there is a such thing as toxic masculinity. We're not there. There is a such thing of toxic femininity, I believe, today that's showing up in the space that looks like masculinity, right? And so when we show up as men, again, that common experience is, yeah, yeah, we're glad you're here, but now that you're here, here's how we think you need to change, or here's what we think you need to fix. And that's just a common experience. It just is. 51 out of 100 men right now hearing this would be like, yep, yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep, yep. I mean, and so that's one of the realities that we got to. So let's pivot. And so, again, this is our perspective, right, wrong, or indifferent. My perspective and your perspective. We may agree, we may disagree. Other people may agree with one or both of us, or vice versa. I think where we have men that refuse to look in the mirror for whatever reason, I think commonly one of the challenges that women have in our culture is looking in the mirror and not accepting what they see in the mirror and wanting to change the reality and the perception of what they see in the mirror. I mean, I'm sorry, but a 45, 50, 60, year old woman should not have a forehead that looks like a windshield. I mean, there should be lines, there should be definition in the face, there should be body parts that aren't where they were when they're 20 something, and that should be okay. And so to go change those things, and I think culturally, speaking these days, women have a hard time with kind of self accountability, holding each other accountable. I think women are great with lifting each other up and those sorts of things, but not necessarily holding each other accountable. And to me, that's culturally not being able to look in the mirror. And so I think from my perception as a man, and I've been one my whole life, and not everybody can say that. Um, I think I'm seeing now culturally where, I would love for ladies to start holding each other accountable to their common norms and behaviors. You know, we have accepted toxic masculinity as a thing. Gillette did a whole series commercials about it, and men's organizations are working on men getting better. Um, not only getting better in terms of rah 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 with networking and business and all that kind of stuff, but getting better on the inside. I don't necessarily see that on the feminine side of the equation in our culture, on the women's side of the equation in our culture, in terms of somebody needs to call out um, a certain actress who's married to a very famous actor that did something on stage against another famous actor. I mean, somebody needs to call out some of this stuff, some of this, some of these things that we see in our culture. I mean, we're seeing it with the Smiths, we're seeing it with the Depps. I mean, we're seeing it with all this kind of stuff, and and so anyhow, I know I'm long winded right now, but I just think that the pivot for me is that I don't see women looking in the mirror and being, somewhat objective of what they see and seeing the flaws and accepting the fact that, what, all of our poop may not be in the group.
Yeah, I mean, you look at things we've talked about before. When we talked about toxic masculinity, I think the first video we ever did as a Madmen was on toxic masculinity, and we talked about toxic masculinity being from pain, from men
Mm-hmm.
who don't feel heard, seen, or
Right.
appreciated, and they don't know what to do with their pain. And I'm starting to see a similar thing with the toxic femininity, because it's not necessarily about their pain, but it's a lack of reality and accountability. Plus, they're also being broadcast to and sold to, and it's like this whole media thing, and there's no accountability. There's no, well, what about me? And then you look at things like divorce courts, and we talked about it as Teresa Wright in the book,
Mm-hmm.
who was is divorce lawyer, and he's like, you have to be very careful, because a woman can just say, I feel scared or I feel unsafe, whether it's true or not. There's no accountability. There's nobody saying, oh, are you sure? Well, what's the evidence? All
Yeah.
she has to do is say that. And now the guy has lost his home, lost his kids, lost his money, and he has little to no recourse other than to spend all his savings and take out loans and mortgages to go to court to try to prove it wrong. So there's no more like innocent until proven guilty. If it's in a family environment, the man is already guilty.
Yeah.
And there's nobody holding an accountability. And of course, I don't like saying that, because I know you and I both know a lot of women who have been on the other side of the fence,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also holding themselves accountable. They have
Mm-hmm.
groups, and they know they're attuned to reality, so they know that it's a two-way street, and we're each bringing in 100%, and we're each responsible, and we each need to be communicating and giving support and receiving support and talking about what is real, not just looking at social media and going, oh, well, I should have everything and give nothing because that's what the social media tells me I
Yeah.
deserve.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, and obviously, oh, by the way, Mad Men of Masculinity reset. If you got anything you want to kind of chime in, you can. If you're watching this live, we only got like another few minutes left, but you can go to the Mad Men of Masculinity page on Facebook, and if you type any comments there, we'll see them either live before we drop off of here, or we'll see them later, and we can respond. And so we
Even
invite
on
you
YouTube,
to,
either
even on
here on
YouTube, we
Facebook,
invite you to like,
replays,
share,
YouTube, like,
subscribe,
share,
all those kinds of
subscribe, and
things.
comment, and we can get back to you on that.
Will Smith that like button, um, and that subscribe button. But I mean, and so yeah, so I mean, and this is just us being real. This is my opinion. I don't, cancel me. I got nothing. You ain't gonna cancel nothing anyway. I
What you
mean,
canceling?
yeah, you ain't. That's the cool part now. It ain't like we got a whole lot you cancel, but these are the facts. These are things that need to be said. And I was talking to a single woman just the other day, and I've said it a couple times now, and it's like, you know what? If you want a masculine man, you need to stop being a masculine man. These sorts of things are like things that I don't know I don't know that women looking in the mirror, or in the proverbial mirror, um, are able to do. I think they look in the metaphorical mirror and say, okay, either that doesn't exist or that doesn't exist. There's not too many women that can say, yeah, I kind of do that, or yeah, I got some stuff I need to work on. Or I mean, that's. I mean, in my opinion, I haven't met too many women that have that ability to be self-critical in a healthy way. I'm not talking about putting yourself down and all that kind of stuff. And we all got our stuff. We've been, man, hell, I've been abused, I've been wounded, I've been all that kind of stuff. So we all have our own personal experiences. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about the fact that, what, I may not be, who I used to be, but I'm definitely not who I'm gonna be. I'm still working on myself. I'm still a work in progress. And like I said, I think in the context of this conversation, men just kind of look away and say, "Yeah, no thanks. I don't need to hear no more." Um, and I think women at the same time look at it and say, "Oh wow, look at how perfect and beautiful I am, and everything is great, and we are doing awesome as women."
Uh-huh.
It's like most of the time, women in relationships,
Yeah.
70-80% of divorces are initiated by women. I mean, if you ask a woman who ended her last relationship, she's probably going to say me. Um, and so, and if the same thing keeps happening over and over again, then what's the common denominator? And so I think culturally speaking, on both sides of that equation, man, we got some work to do in terms of looking in the mirror.
Yeah. I mean, and that's you got to get to the reality of it. I mean, owning your story, owning your past, being able to look in the mirror and go, this is who I am, my story, my wounds, my trauma, those can be my strengths. That can be part of my story. But when all we hear and all we're told is, don't be yourself, be this, be something better, hide your flaws, hide these things. I mean, I was when listening to the book, and one of the things they talk about is how they used to be in the home, the parlor. When somebody would pass, the body would stay in the parlor for weeks before the burial, so that we could embrace death, so we could uh, have an awareness that life is finite. And
Mm-hmm.
now we come to this time. Well, what used to be the parlor is now the living room.
Mm-hmm.
Now we don't we outsource death, and
Mm-hmm.
now we're trying to hide from the fact that we're aging, trying to hide from the fact that we have finite time and that we will die. And so we live in this fantasy world. And that's why looking in the mirror is so hard, because you see you're aging. You
Mm-hmm.
see you're not as fit as you used to be, or you're not
Mm-hmm.
as taut, and the skin's not, you know, as smooth as it used to
Mm-hmm.
be. I've got gray in my hair and my beard. You see these things in the mirror, and it
Mm-hmm.
reminds you that you're finite, that death is coming. But that isn't a problem if you can embrace that, if you're aware of that. But I think the biggest issue is that we have skewed from reality, and we've gone far away from who I am to, well, here's my fantasy world, and I want to stick with this. And so I'm going to have my fantasy stories. I'm going to have my fantasy life in my head. And every time I look in the mirror, I'm reminded that it's a fantasy. And that's
Yeah.
why it's so hard.
Yeah.
Maybe if we come back to reality and own our own stories and own our own
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and actually love who we are,
Mm-hmm.
we can look in that mirror again, start to love ourselves, and realize that there's nothing wrong with the person in the mirror unless
Yeah.
it's time for you to change.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, social media has had a lot to do with that. I mean, because social media is all curated, right? I mean, it's all people posting the best parts of their life, the best pictures. Somebody will take literally 40, 50 pictures just to get that one or two that they post on social media.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's curated. It's not reality. It's like going to Walt Disney World. The way they build the buildings are, I mean, meant to just skew your vision. They talk about when you walk into Walt Disney World on that main street, literally the buildings are not flat. They're built at an angle, so it looks like a whole different perspective. And social media is kind of like that. It's curated. But when we live our lives based on what it, the curated version of what we should be, then we really can't focus on who we are. We really can't focus on the mirror. We'd rather look in the window, because looking in the window is like, yeah, okay, I can look out there and just be a voyeur. I don't have to actually focus on my voyage.
Or like a lot of people do now, is they ignore their mirror, but they're all in your mirror. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about your stuff. They want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about what you got going on. And I think that's what one of the things that we may be digitally connected, but most of us are lonely and separated from reality and from actual people and connection.
Yeah.
And how many of us have real friends that can say, you sure about
Mm-hmm.
that? I
Mm-hmm.
think, and let me check you real quick because I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
Most of us are in this echo chamber
Yeah.
and think that everything we think and every fantasy we come up with is that's it.
Yeah.
But you need connections, you need real people, you need some reality to go, hang on a second, I think you might not be right there. Or maybe you think
Yeah.
about this other way. You have some real people in your life to say, hang on,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we want to look at this another way.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to stop blaming everybody else and look at yourself and see what your contribution is.
Yeah. I love Janine's comment about struggling with not good enough and doing the deep heart work. I'm sorry, I got a cough. Excuse me. Doing the deep heart work, and is having a good self talk. Man, you know I have my kind of 12 I am statements. And for the longest time, I had them taped up on my mirror. And so it's one of those things that while I'm looking in the mirror, I still get those, that positive affirmation. Um, which, again, I think having that positive affirmation um, is great, as long as it doesn't become a skewed sense of reality. The affirmations, I'm the greatest and I'm perfect and all this other kind of stuff. Yeah, if you're Muhammad Ali getting in the ring fighting a 200 and something man that's trying to punch you in the face, you might want to say I'm the greatest. I mean, so you can be ducking and bobbing and weaving. At the same time, he was in the gym all day, every day, working out to be the greatest. He was speaking something that wasn't as if it was. And so, us as people, we got to be in the mirror recognizing that I'm doing the work. And because I'm doing the work, like she said, doing that deep heart work, doing that deep heart work will get us to where we are and where we need to be.
Yeah, I mean, something that is very lacking nowadays. I think it's something that we need to bring back as a people and as culture. And number one, start in our own mirrors and start with ourselves, is to realize we're whole beings. We are the
Mhm.
best of that we can be and the worst that we can be. And we spend so much time trying to ignore what we think is the bad parts. But anything you ignore sneaks out.
Mhm.
You're not loving that part of yourself. You're not accepting that part of yourself, and
Mhm.
that part will come out. And realize you're a whole being. And the more you can accept the fact that you can be the best of the best and the worst of the worst, and know that about yourself, then you can
Mhm.
come to a more sense of reality and more sense of like who you really are. Because if we
Yeah.
don't do that shadow work and accept that part of ourselves and realize that we are both the positive and the negative, we are the best and the worst,
Mhm.
and that will help you to accept the fact that I didn't do it right all the time. I
Mhm.
reacted wrongly. I got angry. I had
Mhm.
too much to drink. I did these things. And to be able to accept those instead of burying them as one more thing that you don't want to look at and heal,
Mhm.
because you don't want to look at that dark side. You only want to focus on the good. Well, you got all of it. We got all. I got all of
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And we don't start to look at that side and say, okay, that's part of me. Okay,
Yeah.
now I need to heal that and make my apologies and embrace that and love that part of myself,
Yeah.
because those parts can be beneficial
Yeah.
if you embrace them and love them. But if you're just ignoring it, then you're living in the fantasy world. You don't have, and it probably means you don't have family or friends or people around you to say, hey,
Well,
you might not have been good on that one.
some of our videos from like years ago are starting to pop back up as
Mhm.
memories. And when they pop back up as memories, I'm like, we actually, I think, I mean, and this is legit what I think we look better than we did 3 years ago.
Yeah,
I
yeah, we're
mean,
doing the work.
especially you. No, I'm just
Oh, see, look
kidding.
at you being nice. Look at you. Oh, hang on a second.
Because we
You
know
ain't
black
looking in the
don't crack.
same mirror as I am.
We know black don't crack, man.
No,
But it
I got
does
my
gray.
lotion though. You
It,
taught me
it,
about the lotion, so I
it
put
does
it
gray,
on more
that's for
places.
sure. So all right, man, let's bring this in for a landing, man. Let's line up on the runway, man. What's your kind of final takeaway thoughts here?
I think it's hard to look in the mirror when you're not accepting all parts of yourself, but the mirror can be your best friend when you start to do that. And if you have trouble with the mirror, maybe find somebody else who can be your mirror for a while until you can get back in the mirror yourself. Find somebody that can help you accept those parts of yourself that you're denying, that you need to accept and love to make yourself whole again.
Yeah.
Become a whole person. And then when you look in the mirror, you'll be like, yeah, I got love handles, I got
Mhm.
flabby chins, and I'm okay with that because you know what? I'm good.
Yeah.
What you think, sir? What you got on your mind?
I think this scar on my forehead is a reminder to me of a trial that I went through. It was a reminder of a wound that I used to have, and that day when that happened, my entire face was covered with blood. It was pretty ugly, but I survived it, and so it's a reminder that I survived it. I survived the stitches that I had, and all the pain that I went through, and all those kinds of things. And so I think, when we hold up a mirror, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we got to see our scars. We got to see our imperfections as as part of our journey. Sometimes there might be potholes in the road, but either way, as part of our journey. And scars are beautiful. Scars are beautiful because it tells us that we've been through some stuff. It tells us that we survived some stuff, and we accept that, we embrace that, and we move forward in life, understanding that again, I'm not who I used to be, but I'm also not who I'm going to be. I love who I see in the mirror, and I accept the fact that what I see in the mirror is a work in progress. Because if you don't love who you are in the mirror, then you won't love anybody else, and you won't allow anybody else to love you. You'll reject love when it shows up, and you'll sabotage love when you have the opportunity to receive it. And so, I think that's highly important in that whole thing. So yes, sir. Right on, my man. That was good stuff, man.
Good,
Hey,
good,
let's
good
take a
times. Oh,
let me look in the
oh,
mirror one more time, man. I'm not being vain. I'm
oh.
just checking out the scar in my mirror, man. And I'm just like, yeah, I got some
Love a little bit
lines.
of me.
I got a little mole right here. I got a little pimple right here or something. I definitely got some gray hairs that I didn't have the last time I grew out some hair. I got, some gray hair. I'm about to get my hair
Mhm.
cut in the next couple of days, so I'm gonna get a fresh fade, and you won't see none of that.
Come on. I can't
And
remember if it was Terrell or Ocho Cinco, but I love me some me.
yeah, well, that was
I
that was
love me some
To.
me.
That was
Was that
To.
T.O.? Yeah,
There's a
Terrell.
there's a thin line between self love and love of self.
That's
I mean,
right.
I think, like I said in the book, I think we need to have self love, but love of self is narcissism.
Right.
So,
Well, and that's the
uh,
thing. If you want to go, if you love audiobooks and you love books and you love to learn like we do, let me pull it up. It's accept your story or is it love your pet? See why I was trying to remember. Own
yeah,
your past, change your future. Great book is
nah,
all about owning your stories and realizing who you are, your traumas, your past, your scars, your things. Those can be your superpowers
mm,
once you own that and accept that and take that in and look in the mirror and go, you know what? That scar is beautiful. This gray is beautiful. This double chin I got is beautiful because it tells me I've been somewhere and I'm still
mm,
going somewhere.
yeah.
So,
You're
uh,
beautiful, man. I love you,
thank
brother.
you very much. You beautiful. I wish I could look like you, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to,
Hey, man.
I'm using the lotion like you told me to. My skin's getting
Yeah,
better.
yeah. Keep the moisturized. You got
Keep
to
it
keep it
moisturized.
moist. You got to keep it moistened up. You got to keep it
Gotta keep moist. Not all
elastic.
dried out. Not all
Yeah,
dried out.
yeah. Gonna be getting all
All right, we
ashy.
love y'all. We'll talk to you later. Bye.